What would you do if the family you loved slammed the door in your face, leaving your sick child to suffer in the rain? That's the question I faced one stormy night, my heart pounding as I stood on my parents' porch, begging for help. The rain wasn't just falling. It was a merciless onslaught, battering our '98 Ford pickup, where my wife, Sarah, cradled our 6-year-old daughter, Lily, her wheezes slicing through the thunder. My mother's voice cut deeper. "No room here, Michael." My sister Rachel sneered, "You're a failure. What can you offer?" That betrayal burned, a wound no storm could wash away. Option 1, walk away, pride intact, your family shivering. Option 2, beg again, swallowing every shred of dignity. Which would you choose? Comment your pick, 1 or 2, below. If you love stories of resilience, reclaiming justice with style, and rediscovering your worth, hit that subscribe button for Graceful Revenge now. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's dive into the power of elegant revenge and life's deepest lessons together. Hours earlier, I'd stood on the sagging porch of my childhood home in Cullman, Alabama, soaked to the skin, begging for shelter. My mother's voice had been cold, unyielding. "There's no room here, Michael." My older sister, Rachel, was worse, her words a venomous strike. "Help you? With what? You're a nobody, a failure dragging his family down." My father, silent as always, stared at the ground, hands stuffed in his pockets. That rejection wasn't just a closed door. It was a blade, carving a wound that bled through every hope I'd clung to. I turned to Sarah, her face ghostly in the dim glow of a streetlight, and whispered, "I'll fix this, I swear." But my voice trembled, and deep down, I doubted myself. We were homeless, penniless, with nowhere to turn. Yet, less than a year later, with $30 million in my hands, I stood face to face with the family who'd abandoned me, ready to answer their betrayal with a truth they'd never forget. This is my story, a tale of loss, betrayal, miracles, and the family I found when blood turned its back. My name is Michael, 33 years old. A year ago, Sarah, Lily, and I were scraping by in Jasper, a small town in northern Alabama where cotton fields stretch under a sky too vast for dreams. Jasper's a place of quiet streets, red brick churches, and the low hum of tractors at dawn. I wasn't rich, didn't own a big house or drive a shiny car, but I had what mattered: a wife who loved me, a daughter who lit up my world, and a small auto repair shop I'd built from sweat and stubbornness. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep us grounded. Growing up, I was the youngest of 3 in a working-class family, always in the shadows of my siblings. My sister, Rachel, 5 years older, was the golden child, sharp-tongued, ambitious, the one my parents saw as their ticket to pride. She'd breeze through school, collecting awards, her eyes already on a corner office. My brother, Ethan, 3 years my senior, was the steady one, practical, content to follow Rachel's lead and work at Dad's hardware store. Me? I was the odd one, the kid who'd rather tear apart engines or sketch car designs than chase grades or glory. They called me too soft, a dreamer who'd never amount to much. I remember summer evenings in our cramped backyard, Rachel and Ethan plotting their futures while I tinkered with a neighbor's broken lawnmower. Dad would watch from the porch, shaking his head. "You're wasting your life, Michael," he'd say. "Rachel's going to college. Ethan's learning the business. What have you got?" Mom wasn't much kinder, her sighs heavy with disappointment. "You could have been something," she'd mutter, as if fixing things wasn't enough. I learned early to keep my head down, to find pride in my hands, not their words. At 16, I started working at a garage after school, sweeping floors, watching mechanics like they held the secrets to the universe. The owner, Mr. Carter, saw something in me. "You've got a gift, kid," he'd say, tossing me a wrench. "Don't let anyone tell you different." His words stuck, a lifeline in a house that felt like a cage. By 18, I skipped college, apprenticed full-time, and at 22, I opened Michael's Auto, a concrete lot with 2 bays, a hand-painted sign, and a fire in my gut to prove them wrong. I didn't have a degree, but I had calloused hands and a knack for fixing what was broken. The shop wasn't glamorous, just a cinder-block building with oil-stained floors, but it paid the bills. Customers liked me because I was honest, never charged for work they didn't need. Old man Carter, now retired, would stop by with coffee, clapping my shoulder. "You're good people, Michael. Don't let this town grind you down." Those words carried me through long nights, when the weight of bills and doubts pressed hard. By 32, I'd carved out a life. I married Sarah at 26, a woman with a laugh like summer wind and eyes that saw through my rough edges. She'd grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes in southern Alabama, no family to call her own. Her childhood was a patchwork of strangers' houses, some kind, some cruel. She told me once about a foster mom who burned her books when she stayed up reading, and my heart broke for the girl she'd been. We met at a county fair, her running a booth selling homemade jams, me there to fix a vendor's busted generator. She teased me for my greasy hands, and I was hooked. We didn't have a fairy tale romance, just quiet nights, her reading poetry, me sketching engines, both of us content in the silence. Sarah was my anchor, the one who saw me when no one else did. She'd grown up fighting for every scrap of love, and maybe that's why she gave it so freely. We'd lie in bed, her head on my chest, and she'd whisper, "You're enough, Michael." I believed her, even when I doubted myself. Our wedding was simple, just a courthouse ceremony and a picnic by the river. Her in a white sundress, me in my only suit. We promised to build a life, not a fortune, and for a while, we did. Our daughter, Lily, came on a chilly October morning, a tiny fighter with a smile that could melt steel. But her lungs were weak, plagued by asthma that stole her breath and our sleep. Her first attack came at 3 months, her tiny chest heaving, eyes wide with panic. We rushed her to the ER, the beeping monitors a nightmare I couldn't wake from. The doctor's words were a hammer. Chronic asthma. She'll need inhalers, maybe hospital stays. It's manageable, but it's not cheap. Every winter, we braced for hospital runs, her wheezes a constant reminder of how fragile our world was. I'd sit by her bed during attacks, holding her hand, whispering, "Breathe, baby. Daddy's here." Sarah would stay up, adjusting the nebulizer, her face calm, but her eyes scared. We were a team, the 3 of us against the world. We lived in a single-story house on Jasper's outskirts, with creaky floors and a porch where Sarah grew roses. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, bought with every overtime hour I could scrape. I'd come home greasy, kiss Lily's forehead, and hear Sarah hum over the stove. Those moments were my anchor, proof that even if I wasn't Rachel's version of successful, I had enough. Lily would toddle out, her bunny clutched tight, and I'd scoop her up, her giggles erasing the day's weight. Sarah would join us, her hands dusted with flour, and we'd sit on the porch, watching fireflies, dreaming of small things, a new swing set, a vacation someday. But life doesn't care about your dreams. Trouble crept in slow, like a leak you don't notice until the floor's ruined. A chain auto shop opened in Jasper, all shiny ads and cut-rate prices. My customers dwindled, first the new folks, then the regulars who'd sworn by me. By spring, I was barely breaking even. I took side gigs, fixing tractors, hauling scrap, cleaning gutters, but the money wasn't enough. Lily's hospital visits kept coming, each one costing hundreds we didn't have. A single inhaler was $80, and she needed 2 a month. Sarah picked up shifts at a diner, her hands red from washing dishes, but it was like bailing out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. I pawned tools, sold my grandfather's pocket knife, even the radio from the shop. We ate rice and beans, turned off the heat to save money, and prayed. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, guilt gnawing at me. I'd promised Sarah stability, Lily safety, and now we were slipping. One night, after Lily was asleep, Sarah touched my arm. "We'll get through this, Michael. We always do." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were hollow, and I hated myself for putting that look there. I'd sworn to protect them, and I was failing. Then came the flood. June brought a storm that turned Jasper's rivers into monsters. Rain fell for days, relentless, until the creeks overflowed, swallowing streets, homes, and my shop. I waded through knee-deep mud, the water cold and brown, trying to save what I could, tools, parts, anything. But the equipment was ruined, the building condemned. The floodwater smelled of diesel and decay, a stench that clung to my skin for days. I stood in the wreckage, rain mixing with tears, as the shop I'd poured my soul into became a pile of soggy rubble. My tools, my sketches, the sign I'd painted with Sarah's help, all gone. Insurance paid a pittance, $4,000 against a $50,000 loss, nowhere near enough to rebuild. The bank called in the loan I'd taken to expand the shop, their voice on the phone cold. Pay up or lose everything. I fought to hold on. I applied for relief funds, drove to Montgomery to plead with FEMA, sat in waiting rooms with other broken dreamers. The answer was always the same. Show us income, or it's over. I tried local banks, credit unions, even a loan shark who laughed in my face. By August, we were drowning in debt, mortgage, utilities, Lily's meds. Sarah's laughter vanished, replaced by a quiet that scared me more than her tears. Lily stopped asking for toys, her small hands clutching her inhaler instead. She'd draw pictures of our house, her crayons shaky, and I'd choke back tears, knowing we couldn't go back. One night, I found Sarah in the bathroom, tears streaming, whispering, "I'm scared, Michael. What happens if we lose her?" Her voice broke, and I held her, my own eyes burning. "We won't," I said, my voice fierce. "I'll find a way." But inside, I was terrified. Lily's last hospital stay had cost $2,000, even with insurance, and we had nothing left. I'd pawned my wedding ring the month before, slipping it off in secret so Sarah wouldn't see. She noticed anyway, her fingers brushing my bare hand, but she didn't say a word, just squeezed tighter. The end came in September. The bank foreclosed on our house. We had 10 days to pack. I loaded what fit in the pickup: clothes, Lily's meds, a box of her stuffed animals, Sarah's rose clippers. Everything else, furniture, photos, the life we'd built, stayed behind. The kitchen table where Lily learned to write her name, the couch where Sarah and I watched old movies, the wall with her height marks. They weren't ours anymore. We drove away under a gray sky, Lily's coughs echoing in the silence, her bunny clutched tight. I glanced in the rearview mirror, the house shrinking, and felt my heart crack. That house was where Lily took her first steps, where Sarah and I danced to no music, where we dreamed of a future. Now it was gone. For weeks, we survived on fumes. We parked at campgrounds, church lots, anywhere we could hide. Sarah braided Lily's hair under streetlights, telling her stories of princesses and dragons to keep her calm. I scrounged day jobs, cleaning gutters, moving furniture, fixing a farmer's old Chevy, but the money barely bought gas and canned soup. Each job was a grind, my hands blistered, my back aching, but I'd do it again for a single loaf of bread for Lily. Sarah stretched every dollar, sewing patches on Lily's clothes, making soup from scraps. She'd smile for Lily, but I saw the strain, her shoulders hunched, her eyes distant. Lily's asthma worsened in the humid air, her breaths shallow, her lips pale. Every cough was a knife, twisting deeper. We'd sit her up, Sarah rubbing her back, me holding the inhaler, whispering, "You're okay, baby. Just breathe." But she wasn't okay, and neither were we. Every night, I lay awake, guilt clawing at me. My daughter deserved a bed, not a truck seat. My wife deserved a home, not this nightmare. I'd see Sarah's face in the dark, her eyes closed but not peaceful, and I'd wonder how much longer she could hold on. We tried shelters, but they were grim. At one, a man leered at Sarah, his eyes hungry, and I pulled her out before he could speak. Another had kids eyeing Lily's toys, their parents too strung out to care. The air smelled of sweat and desperation, and Lily's coughs echoed in the crowded rooms. We stuck to the truck, our world shrinking to its rusted walls. Sarah hung an old sheet as a curtain, giving Lily a corner to feel safe. She'd draw pictures on scrap paper, her crayons worn to nubs, and I'd choke back tears at her smile, so brave despite everything. One night, a cop tapped the window, his flashlight blinding. "You can't stay here," he said, his voice tired but firm. "Move on by morning." I nodded, my throat tight, and drove to a gravel lot behind Grace Methodist Church, one of the few places that hadn't chased us off. The lot was hidden, flanked by pines, and the church's lights gave a faint glow. We parked, the engine ticking as it cooled, and I leaned back, staring at the stars through the cracked windshield. Sarah reached for my hand, her fingers cold. "We're still us," she whispered. I squeezed back, but the words felt hollow. Who were we without a home? Life in the truck was a slow bleed. We'd wake to Lily's coughs, Sarah checking her forehead, me counting our last dollars. Breakfast was half a granola bar, lunch a shared can of beans. Dinner, if we were lucky, was bread and peanut butter from a food pantry. Sarah kept Lily's spirits up, teaching her songs, playing I Spy with Shadows. But the strain showed. Her hands trembled when she poured water. Her voice cracked when she thought I wasn't listening. I'd catch her staring at Lily, her eyes wet, and I'd hate myself for not being enough. I'd drifted from my family years ago. Growing up, Rachel was the star, Ethan the rock, and I was the afterthought. My parents never hid their disappointment. Rachel went to business school, Ethan joined the hardware store, but I was wasting my life fixing cars. Arguments drove a wedge. Rachel called me a loser. Dad said I'd never measure up. Mom sighed like I was a burden. I stopped visiting after I married Sarah, tired of their judgment. I sent Christmas cards, wired money when Dad's truck broke down, not out of love but duty. It wasn't much, but it was my way of keeping the peace, of proving I wasn't the failure they thought. Now, with nowhere else to turn, I swallowed my pride. Sarah and Lily needed a roof, and I'd beg if I had to. I hadn't been back to Coleman in years, but the thought of Lily sleeping in the rain, her coughs worsening, pushed me forward. I told Sarah my plan, expecting her to hesitate. She didn't. "If it's for Lily," she said, her voice steady, "we try." Her trust in me, even now, was a weight I didn't deserve. The drive to Coleman was a blur, the truck rattling over potholes, rain blurring the road. Lily slept in Sarah's arms, her wheezes softer but constant, each one a reminder of what was at stake. My stomach churned as we pulled up to the old brick house, its porch light flickering like it had when I was a kid sneaking in late. The yard was overgrown, the mailbox rusted, but it was the same house where I'd once felt small, invisible. I knocked, my heart pounding, rain dripping down my neck. Mom opened the door, her eyes widening, then narrowing. "Michael?" she said, like my name was a puzzle she hadn't solved. Her hair was grayer, her face lined, but her expression was the same, disappointment, thinly veiled. I forced a smile, my voice low. "We're in trouble, Mom. Lost the house, the shop, everything. We need a place to stay, just for a bit." Sarah stood behind me, holding Lily, who coughed softly, a weak, rasping sound that broke my heart. Mom's gaze flicked to them, then back to me. She didn't invite us in. Instead, she stepped onto the porch, closing the door partway, like we were strangers selling something she didn't want. Dad appeared next, his face weathered, mouth set in a familiar frown. Rachel was last, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, her designer scarf a stark contrast to our soaked clothes. She looked polished, her nails perfect, her eyes cold. Ethan wasn't there. He lived across town now, but I felt his absence like a judgment too. "There's no room here, Michael," Mom said, her voice flat, like she was reading a script. "Rachel's got her office in your old room, and Ethan's kids use the guest space when they visit." I swallowed, my throat tight. "What about the basement? We'll sleep on the floor, anything. Lily's sick, Mom. She needs a bed." Dad shook his head, looking past me, his voice gruff. "Can't do it. We're stretched thin ourselves." Rachel smirked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Help you? With what? You're a nobody, a failure dragging his family down. You think you can just show up and mooch off us?" Her words hit like a fist, each one a nail in a coffin I tried to keep open. I stood frozen, rain dripping down my face, Sarah's hand trembling on my arm. Lily coughed again, her small body shaking, and I felt rage bubble, hot and useless. I wanted to scream, to beg, but pride choked me. "Fine," I said, my voice barely audible. "Can you at least loan us a couple $100? For Lily's meds. I'll pay it back." Rachel laughed, sharp and cold, her eyes glinting. "Loan you money? With what?" "You're a dead end, Michael." Mom looked away, her hands twisting her apron. Dad shuffled his feet, muttering something about tough times. Rachel stepped forward, her voice low, venomous. "You made your choices. Don't come crying to us now." She shut the door, the click echoing in the storm, louder than the thunder. I turned, guiding Sarah back to the truck, her silence heavier than the rain. Lily whimpered, her face buried in Sarah's shoulder. I opened the door for them, my hands shaking, and climbed in, the engine sputtering to life. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror, the house fading into the dark. That was the moment I knew. The family I'd been born into wasn't mine anymore. They'd chosen their pride over my daughter's breath, and I'd never forget it. We ended up back in the gravel lot behind Grace Methodist, the only place that hadn't shooed us off. The lot was hidden, flanked by pines, and the church's lights gave a faint glow, almost mocking our darkness. The truck was our world now, kitchen, bedroom, sanctuary. Sarah rigged a curtain from an old sheet, giving Lily a corner to feel safe. We ate gas station sandwiches, counted pennies for Lily's inhalers, and prayed her coughs wouldn't turn into another ER visit. Every night, I stared at the stars, guilt gnawing at me. I'd failed them. My daughter deserved a bed, not a truck seat. My wife deserved a home, not this purgatory. Life in the truck was a slow unraveling. We'd wake to Lily's coughs, Sarah checking her forehead, me counting our last dollars. Breakfast was half a granola bar, lunch a shared can of beans, dinner a slice of bread if we were lucky. Sarah kept Lily's spirits up, teaching her songs, playing I Spy with shadows on the windshield. She'd braid Lily's hair, her fingers steady even when her voice wasn't, and tell stories of far-off places, her eyes bright for our girl. But the strain showed. Her hands trembled when she poured water. Her voice cracked when she thought I wasn't listening. I'd catch her staring at Lily, her eyes wet, and I'd hate myself for not being enough. I tried to keep hope alive, but it was a flickering flame. I'd drive to job sites, my hands blistered from hauling lumber, my back aching from digging ditches. Each dollar felt like a drop in a bucket with a hole. Sarah stretched every cent, sewing patches on Lily's clothes, making soup from scraps. She'd smile for Lily, but I saw the cracks, her shoulders hunched, her eyes distant. One night, she whispered, "I miss our porch." And I held her, my own tears falling, because I missed it too. Lily was the hardest. She'd clutch her bunny, her eyes big, asking, "When can we go home, Daddy?" I'd choke out, "Soon, baby," knowing it was a lie. Her coughs grew sharper, her cheeks pale, and every wheeze was a reminder of my failure. We'd sit her up, Sarah rubbing her back, me holding the inhaler, whispering, "You're okay, baby, just breathe." But she wasn't okay, and neither were we. The truck's air was thick, the humidity making her lungs fight harder. I'd lie awake, listening to her breathe, praying for a miracle I didn't believe in. One evening, as thunder growled, Lily's breathing turned ragged, a wet, desperate sound. Sarah pressed a hand to her forehead, her voice sharp with fear. "She's burning up, Michael. We need a doctor." My heart raced. We had $12 left, not enough for a clinic, let alone a hospital. I tore through our bags, searching for anything to sell, a watch, a tool, anything, my hands shaking with panic. The thought of losing Lily, of her fading in this damn truck, was a weight I couldn't bear. I was about to give up when my phone buzzed. A video call from Jake, a high school buddy I hadn't seen in a decade. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then answered. Jake's face filled the screen, his brow furrowed under a baseball cap. "Michael, I saw a post about the Jasper floods. Was that your shop?" His voice was rough, concerned, and it cracked something in me. I nodded, my throat dry. "Yeah, it's gone, all of it." Without thinking, I tilted the phone, the camera catching Sarah fanning Lily with a torn magazine, her small body curled under the blanket, her wheezes loud in the quiet. Jake's eyes widened, his jaw tightening. "Where the hell are you?" "In the truck," I said, my voice hollow, barely above a whisper. "Behind a church. Lily's sick. We're out of options." The words felt like ash, admitting how far we'd fallen. Jake's face hardened, his voice firm, no room for doubt. "Send me your location. I'm coming, right now." He hung up before I could argue, and I stared at the screen, my chest tight. Jake and I hadn't been close since school, just shared beers at reunions. But I'd fixed his mom's car once, no charge, when she was struggling. Was that enough for this? 30 minutes later, his Jeep's headlights sliced through the rain, bright as salvation. Jake didn't wait for explanations. He strode to the truck, yanked open the back door, and saw Lily's flushed face, her lips pale, her eyes half closed. "Get her in my car," he said, his tone sharp but steady, a man who'd seen enough to know time mattered. Sarah hesitated, her arms tightening around Lily, then nodded, lifting our girl with a tenderness that broke me. I followed, my chest tight, as Jake sped toward the county hospital, the wipers slashing through the storm, the road a blur of black and silver. At the ER, Jake handed his credit card to the nurse. No questions asked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Don't make the kid wait." When they asked his relation, he said, "Friend?" But his eyes said more. Anger, not at us, but at the world that let a child suffer. I sat in the waiting room, head in my hands, the fluorescent lights buzzing like my thoughts. Sarah stayed with Lily, her strength holding us together when I was falling apart. Jake dropped a coffee and a granola bar in my lap, his voice gruff. "Eat, man. You're no good to them if you pass out." I looked up, my voice breaking, raw with a question I couldn't hold back. "Why are you doing this, Jake? You don't owe me." He shrugged, but his eyes burned, fierce and steady. 10 years ago, you fixed my mom's car for free when she was broke, about to lose her job. You didn't ask questions, didn't blink, kept her going. I don't forget shit like that." His words hit hard, a memory I'd buried. Me under a hood, wiping grease, handing his mom the keys with a smile. I hadn't thought it mattered. Now it was saving us. I couldn't speak, my throat too tight, tears threatening. Jake didn't push, just sat beside me, his presence solid, grounding. Hours later, Sarah came out, her face tired but relieved. "She's stable," she said, her voice shaky. "Fever's down. They're keeping her tonight." I hugged her, my arms trembling, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed. By dawn, Lily's fever had broken. The doctor, a kind woman with gray streaks in her hair, prescribed antibiotics and a new inhaler, her voice gentle but firm. "She needs a cool, clean space to recover. No humidity, no stress." I nodded, but my mind screamed, "Where?" We had the truck, nothing else. Jake leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his eyes scanning me like he knew my thoughts. "I've got a place," he said, his voice matter-of-fact. "My uncle's got a cattle ranch outside Florence. Big house, mostly empty. He's old, doesn't care who stays. You, Sarah, Lily, you're moving in." I stared, my throat tight, shaking my head. "Jake, we can't—" "Shut up," he cut in, not unkindly, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "You're not sleeping in a damn truck. End of story." His tone left no room for argument, and Sarah squeezed my hand, her eyes pleading. For Lily, I nodded, the weight of his kindness almost too much to bear. 2 days later, we followed Jake's Jeep to the ranch, a sprawling spread of red dirt and rolling hills, dotted with grazing cows. The house was old, with peeling paint and a tin roof that sang in the rain, but it felt like salvation. Jake's uncle, Amos, was a wiry man with a limp, a sunburned face, and a voice like gravel. He glanced at us, his eyes sharp but not unkind, and nodded. "Room's at the back. Don't break nothing." Then he shuffled off to feed the cows, his boots kicking up dust, like taking in strangers was just another chore. I carried Lily inside, her small hand gripping mine, her bunny tucked under her arm. The room was plain, a double bed, a creaky dresser, a window with a view of the fields. But it was clean, dry, a world away from the truck. Sarah opened the windows, letting fresh air chase out the musty smell, her movements slow, deliberate, like she was afraid it might vanish. For the first time in weeks, Lily smiled, arranging her stuffed animals on the bed, her cough softer, less desperate. Sarah touched my arm, her eyes soft, a flicker of hope in them. "We're okay," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. I nodded, but the fear lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. This was temporary. What came next?